Dear students, hello and welcome. Today we will be talking about the Triarchic theory of intelligence. And after finishing this lecture, you will be able to know about the nature of Triarchic theory of intelligence, contextual subtheory of intelligence, experiential subtheory, the componential subtheory, and you will be able to understand the successful intelligence. Dear students, Robert Jeffrey Sternberg, the American psychologist and psychometrician, proposed the Triarchic theory of human intelligence in 1985 and divided intelligence into three abilities, that is, the analytical, creative and practical. He conducted research to determine mental functions, different ways of thinking and how to modify cognition. This theory attempts to understand the cognitive processes involved in solving problems. In this way, Sternberg proposed a process-oriented theory of intelligence and concentrated on what happens inside people's heads when they reason and process information effectively. According to Sternberg's own words, to be successfully intelligent, you need creative skills to come up with ideas. You need analytical abilities to evaluate the ideas, and you need practical abilities to make your ideas work and to persuade other people that your ideas are worth listening to. The important feature of Triarchic theory of intelligence is that it attempts to understand the human intelligence in terms of distinct components rather than a single ability. Before Sternberg came up with his theory, general intelligence was the idea that dominated most of the intelligence theories. Quite contrary to behaviorist viewpoint, Sternberg proposed a theory dealing with the cognitive approach to intelligence. For Sternberg, a person's adaptation to changing environment and his contribution of knowledge in shaping the world around him or her had a significant importance in determining his or her intelligence. Sternberg also argued that intelligent tests would ignore creativity and other important characteristics like cognitive processes, performance components, planning and decision-making skills, etc. Therefore, Sternberg proposed his theory as an alternative to the idea of the general intelligence factor. For Sternberg, general intelligence factor, popularly known as G, is what intelligence tests typically measure and refers only to academic intelligence. Sternberg argued that in measuring an individual's overall intelligence, practical intelligence, that refers to a person's ability to react and adapt to the world around them, as well as creativity, are equally important. He emphatically argued that intelligence isn't fixed, but rather comprises a set of abilities that can be developed. Sternberg's reconceptualizing intelligence resembles to that of Aristotle's ancient premise that intelligence is composed of three aspects, that is theoretical, practical and productive. According to Sternberg, intelligence revolves around the interchange of analytical, practical and creative aspects of the mind. It is his firm assertion that what most IQ tests measure is only the componential or analytical aspects in intelligence. Robert Sternberg's apt definition of human intelligence is mental activity directed toward purposive adaptation to selection and shaping of real-world environments relevant to one's life. This definition goes beyond the adaptive nature of intelligence. Thus, intelligence is not just reacting in the form of adaptation to the demands of the environment, but also involves actively shaping and selecting the environment. When a person is not able to adapt to an environment, he or she may try to bring changes in the environmental context according to his or her own likings. According to Sternberg, the environmental context goes on changing for an individual, and thus adequate adaptation, shaping and selection involve a process of lifelong learning. Thus, Sternberg in his novel approach viewed intelligence as how well individuals deal with environmental changes throughout their lifespan. As he beautifully writes, intelligent behavior involves adapting to your environment, changing your environment, or selecting a better environment. Sternberg supports Howard Gardner's view that intelligence is not a unitary mental function. However, for him, intelligence is not made up of numerous intelligences. According to him, intelligence comprises of three interacting components: the analytical, creative, and practical components. The triarchic theory of Sternberg is comprised of three sub-theories, each of which relates to a specific kind of intelligence. These include contextual sub-theory, experiential sub-theory, and componential sub-theory. The contextual sub-theory of Sternberg corresponds to a practical intelligence or the ability to successfully function in one's environment. The experiential sub-theory corresponds to creative intelligence or the ability to deal with novel situations or issues. The third one, that is the componential sub-theory, corresponds to analytical intelligence or the ability to solve problems. We now present here a detailed discussion on the sub-theories as proposed by Robert J. Sternberg. Dear students, Sternberg broke his theory down into the following three sub-theories. First, it is contextual sub-theory. The contextual sub-theory, later called as practical intelligence, asserts that intelligence is intertwined with the individual's environment. It refers to the ability to translate theory into practice and transfer abstract ideas into practical accomplishments. Therefore, intelligence is based on the way one functions in his or her everyday circumstances. It includes one's ability to adapt to one's environment, select the best environment for oneself, or shape the environment to better fit one's needs and desires. Students, so contextual sub-theory is based on three mental processes, that is adaptation, selection, and shaping of real-world environments. Adaptation is simply reacting to the demands of environment. Shaping is an active process of bringing change in the environmental context. And finally, selection involves complete change of environment. For example, changing to another school because of one's inability to adjust in that environment. Thus, intelligence reflects not in possessing certain abilities, rather in their adequate use in real life. Hence, this type of intelligence refers to the ability of an individual helping him or her to apply knowledge to the real world and to shape one's environment. It deals with the ways people shape their environment effectively and make most of the available resources. It refers to the effective management of the self as well as everyday life business, terming it differently. It is the ability of a person to adapt in an environment or change it accordingly to best suit his personal needs. How we select our external environment, how we change or manipulate our environment as per our needs and requirements, and finally, how capable we are to adjust with it. All these come under contextual intelligence. This type of intelligence is reflected in activities such as implementing, using, applying, and seeking relevance. Practically intelligent people are found behaving in successful ways in their external environment. Persons high on this dimension are intelligent in a practical sense. They are highly adaptive in the practical field. They can adapt very quickly with their surrounding and environment. They can perceive quickly what is required from them in a particular situation and what type of behaviors or response will bring them success. People who prove very successful in their respective fields of life score very high in this component of intelligence. They shape the environment as per their needs. Successful professionals and businessmen score high in this category. They quickly recognize what factors influence success on various tasks and are adept at both adapting to and shaping their environment. Hence, practical management of day-to-day work comes under this category. According to Sternberg, practical intelligence is the ability to size up a situation well, to be able to determine how to achieve goals, to display awareness to the world around you, and to display interest in the world at large. At the first instance, the individual first looks for ways to adapt or fit into the environment. If it is not possible to adapt, the individual then tries to select a different environment or to shape the existing environment in order to fit into it. Another way to understand such type of intelligence is to relate it with common sense. If a person is in a position to dealing with the everyday tasks in the best possible manner, it shows the person's practical intelligence. Being practical means to find solutions to one's everyday life problems by applying knowledge based on your experience. According to Sternberg, the psychometric tests were not the real measures to assess the practical intelligence because people who had scored high in such tests had problems in dealing with real life situations. According to Sternberg, solving practical problems requires a kind of different intelligence for success in school or other intellectual pursuits. Practical intelligence can be valuable in many contexts. It may be concluded that contextual ability involves applying, using, and putting acquired knowledge into practice. This ability is very essential in coping with daily tasks. So, the key functions in practical aspects of intelligence is to apply, use, implement, employ, etc. Now, students, let us understand the experiential subtheory. This theory focuses on the relationship between the person's inner mental world and the outer, that is, external world. This theory specifies how experiences affect intelligence and how intelligence affects a person's experiences. This view adds creativity, novelty, and originality to the conception of intelligence. So, The experiential subtheory is related to creative intelligence. It emphasizes insight and the ability to formulate new ideas. It is one's ability to use existing knowledge to create new ways to handle new problems or cope in new situations. Sternberg notes that some tasks are novel and so require a special way of thinking. The creative intelligence, as a matter of fact, is the ability to go beyond the given data to generate novel and interesting ideas. Experiential intelligence uses first divergent thinking, that is to generate new ideas, and ability to deal with novel situations. Hence, creative intelligence is the ability to invent new ideas and solutions for new problems or situations. In other words, it can be said that this form of intelligence is associated with using existing knowledge and skills in order to deal with new problems or situations. It involves the ability to picture the external world by using and manipulating very different experiences in a unique and original manner. Creative intelligence can be divided into two categories. First, it is novelty. This is concerned with the ability of a person to deal with the problem for the first time. Second, it is automation. This is concerned with the ability of a person to automatically perform the repeated tasks. In other words, the tasks that are encountered repeatedly become automatic. For instance, reading is an automatized task which is carried out largely without conscious thought. Playing music is also an example of automatized activity. So, according to this theory, automation is also a part of intelligence. In a nutshell, creative intelligence is related to inventing or imagining a solution to a problem or situation. It helps in learning new things and then doing them in reality. This creative or experiential ability involves creating, exploring, discovering, inventing, imagining and supposing ideas. It can include finding a novel solution to an unexpected problem or producing a beautiful work of art or a well-developed short story. It is reflected in creative work. The key functions in creative aspects of intelligence include creating, inventing, discovering, imagining, predicting, etc. A creative individual may not perform well on a test of intelligence, but such individuals are able to combine and recombine their various experiences in uniquely original way. He is a good synthetic thinker, sees the connections and relationships others don't see. He has the ability to analyze and evaluate ideas. Students, persons who are high on this dimension excel in knowing what information is important in a given situation, and they also succeed at combining seemingly unrelated facts into a related one. This is the kind of intelligence shown by many scientific geniuses and inventors such as Einstein, Newton, Johannesburg, etc. Various Nobel Prize winners in science and medicine come under this category. Artists, scientists and fashion designers score high in this type of intelligence. Now let us understand the componential subtheory. The componential subtheory is related to analytical intelligence. It emphasizes effectiveness in information processing. It consists of internal mental mechanisms that are responsible for intelligent behavior. analytical intelligence is used to solve problems. It is essentially academic intelligence. It is the kind of intelligence that is measured by a standard IQ test. Componential intelligence refers to the traditional notion of intelligence and hence includes abstract thinking and logical reasoning, verbal and mathematical skills. Thus, componential intelligence, or you may call it analytical intelligence, involves the abilities to think critically and analytically. Componential intelligence includes three types of components. First, it is meta-components. These are the executive processes that control, monitor and evaluate cognitive processing. Then, performance components. They execute strategies assembled by meta-components. Then there is knowledge acquisition component. These are the processes used in learning. They encode, combine and compare information. Students, the persons who possess high analytical intelligence are usually good at problem solving. They are able to think critically and analytically. They usually shine on standard tests of academic potential. Because of their abstract thinking and evaluation skills, these people are generally more able to see the solutions. As already said, analytical intelligence is closely related with academic problem solving and computations. According to Robert J. Sternberg, analytical intelligence is demonstrated by an ability to analyze, evaluate, judge, compare and contrast. Analytical or componential ability involves analyzing, evaluating, critiquing, comparing and contrasting ideas. An individual well versed in these skills is ahead in information processing and problem solving skills. Persons who are high on this dimension excel on standard tests of academic potential. Professors, meritorious students come under this category. According to Sternberg, the key functions in analytical intelligence are to judge, analyze, critique, compare, contrast, evaluate and assess. Now, let us understand the successful intelligence. Students, in his later work known as Successful Intelligence, Sternberg expanded his theory of intelligence and asserted that successful people learn to combine and use aspects from all three components of intelligence. The analytical component comprises the ability to examine and include the mental steps that help one solve problems. The creative component allows one to examine experiences in ways that offer insights and solutions. The practical aspect of intelligence offers the ability to examine and adapt to the contexts and challenges of everyday life. For Sternberg, it is not enough to be proficient in just one area, rather there has to be interplay between all three forms of intelligence. Terming it differently, Sternberg argues that effective interaction among the analytical, creative and practical components are key to achieving successful intelligence. In Sternberg's view, intelligence is purposive adaptation to the appropriate environment and selection of an external environment required for living successfully in the environment. Intelligent people not only adapt to their existing environment but also make changes in their environment and shape it as and when necessary. For instance, social reformers like Raja Ram Mohan Roy or famous novelist Premchand brought changes in the social setup through their evolutionary works. Since Each intellectual component in Sternberg's theory actively relates to the others. His model is considered more dynamic or interactive than Howard Gardner's model of intelligence, where Gardner viewed the various intelligences as separate and independent. Sternberg posited three integrated and interdependent aspects of intelligence. The triarchic theory emphasizes on processes of intelligence rather than domains of intelligence. As in Gardner's theory, because each intellectual component in Sternberg's theory actively relates to the others, his model is considered more dynamic or interactive than Gardner's. For Sternberg, intelligence is made up not of numerous independent intelligences but of three interacting components referred to as the analytic, creative and practical components. Persons who are able to obtain all three abilities in an adequate level are having increasing possibilities of reaching successful intelligence. Since there are individual differences, different people possess these aspects of intelligence in varying amounts. Dear students, to conclude, we may say that the triarchic theory of intelligence propounded by Robert Sternberg provides a useful way of understanding human intelligence. In fact, it captures the important aspects of intelligence not included in conventional theories. It is important to note that this theory emphasizes on the processes of intelligence rather than domains of intelligence. In other words, it attempts to understand the cognitive processes involved in solving problems. For Sternberg, intelligence is the ability to cope with novelty. It refers to the successful adaptation to, selection of and the shaping of real world environments relevant to one's life and abilities. According to this theory, there are three aspects of intelligence: componential or analytical, experiential or creative intelligence, and contextual or practical. Componential or analytical involves the abilities to think critically and analytically. It is the ability to reason, to process information and to solve problems. Experiential or creative intelligence emphasizes insight and the ability to formulate new ideas. Contextual or practical intelligence refers to the effective management of self and practical management of the business of everyday life. It is the people's adaptation ability to environment. People who are able to adapt to the environment have a tendency to be successful in real world situations. All these aspects or components are interdependent according to Sternberg. All of them come into play during the problem solving process and none of them can operate independently. Students, it was all for today. I hope that you might have enjoyed the session. Thanks.